Welcome to our podcast, where we discuss and meet with people, businesses, and trades that have motivated and inspired us along the way of creating our own business, River Road Brewing and Hops. I'm your host, Nikki Andrew, the original River Road Blonde, and this is Down River Road. Thank you again for joining us on Down River Road. I'm here with a very, very special person to me and to my whole family. My husband,
Good
David,
day.
or Red as everyone else knows him as. Well, I guess we should start by talking about the beer that we're drinking. One Lonely Scotch Night is a Scotch or a Scottish style of ale. So malty, caramely, a little sweeter in flavor, darker in color. But the reason it's called One Lonely Scotch Night, David, take it away.
Is a group of us in Bayfield, mostly firefighters. There's a dozen of us that have been or had a Scotch tasting group for about 15 years now. One Tuesday a month, every month for 15 years, we get together and sample scotches at somebody's house. It was our turn to host it at the brewery 3 or 4 years ago when we first opened. When everybody showed up to enjoy our Scotch night, the guys asked if we could brew a beer while we were hosting Scotch night.
Brilliant idea.
Nikki and I had brewed 2 beers that day already, 2 batches of beer.
And so keep in mind too, this was when we were brewing on our smaller system. So one batch of beer would take a long time to brew.
Yeah, 8
we
hours.
had already been
6
brewing
hours.
for like 10 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's just a little back note for you.
So this was a recipe we had brewed many times before, but not commercially. So we got the recipe out and ground the grain and mashed in. And as soon as we mashed in, the boys and I headed up to the man cave to sample our scotches. And we effectively left my wife to brew the beer by herself. So she affectionately called the beer One Lonely Scotch Night.
Yes, because the guys were maybe a few sheets to the wind, I guess is the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Possibly.
Maybe one too many scotches in. And then they all came stumbling down, and it was like the realization we had started to brew beer, and left me down there by myself brewing beer. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It has turned out to be a very popular beer.
Selling beer.
It's tasty. It's delicious. And I think in the wintertime, we sell more in the winter than in the summer. For sure.
It's a dark beer.
Yeah. So just to kind of go back, we'll go way back to when we met.
Uh-huh.
Where did we meet, David?
In a bar.
Of course. A very popular bar at the time. It was
Harry's Restaurant
in Bayfield. It was kind of, when we were younger, much, much younger, we would start at, this is going to sound horrible, but we did a little pub crawl on the weekends. We'd start at the Albion, then we go to the Admiral,
And then to Harry's.
And we always ended up at Harry's. And that was kind of like the routine of everyone in Bayfield. Like, I think everyone did that, right? It wasn't just us. Right?
For the most part. I think everyone did it.
Yeah. And it just so happened that I was living in Stratford at the time. I had bought a house in Stratford, so I was living in Stratford. David was living in town, to the house that we eventually moved in together in. And I had gone there. It was a May 24 weekend with my friend Liz. And we had started the pub crawl a little bit later because we had been in Grand Bend. And by the time we got to Harry's, everyone was 3 sheets to the wind again. And David was there. And it was love at first sight, wasn't it, darling?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, Harry's had a lot of bands.
It's fun, yep. Somehow the band and you ended up on my front porch.
Yeah.
At 3 a.m. And
the rest is history.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of the backstory anyway. Right before we moved to this farm, and I think I talk about this in one of my previous podcasts, basically you were working at a garage, you were a mechanic. I was working in the financial industry. We decided that wasn't for us, and that's history. That's when the brewery started.
Yep.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of the backstory, because people want to know. Where did you come from? What was your career? What all the stuff before you started your life with me? Because that's really where life begins, is when you're with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when, yeah.
Yeah.
No comment. Born in Toronto, moved to Bayfield when I was under a year old. Went to school in Bayfield and Brucefield till grade 3, and then my family moved to London. So I did my schooling in London. The second I was done what I thought was long enough of school,
Which wasn't long enough, but
no, I opened a machine shop and moved to Bayfield and bought a house in Bayfield and have been there ever since. Worked in robotics and building cars and trucks for 20 plus years. And brewed beer for the last 15
yeah, that's been kind of the career
as a
choice.
hobby, but bounced back and forth from career to career through it all, and seems the one thing that stayed consistent was beer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
now that's what we do.
So a bit about the robotics. I know people have asked, when you're developing these systems and building brew systems, where that kind of comes into play. But I think all the different things that you've done through your life have basically made it so that we can function as a brewery without much outside support.
For sure.
Yeah,
We can do all the repairs and design work in-house.
we can.
Is
I like
that-
how you say we can.
I involve you in
Yeah.
everything.
I have nothing to do with it.
You hear me yell and
Yeah.
scream and cuss when they're going wrong.
So if you don't know, David built our first, second, and third system. And then the last system we purchased.
We bought the
because
tanks
it
and
was
we built all the process controls.
quite large, yeah. So, and that building brewing equipment is quite involving, especially when it comes to the computer the computer portion of it, making sure that everything's running at the right temperatures, and it's all computerized. So I look at that and basically go blank and want to run away as fast as I can. But you look at that and you see a challenge and you carry on with it. What made you want to start brewing is a big question I get asked all the time. I get asked all the time, which is kind of one of those things where I'm like, well, I don't brew the beer.
Because I enjoy beer a lot, and 15 years ago I thought it'd be cheaper to brew beer at home than it would be to buy beer.
What is it that you say all the time?
That was maybe the biggest lie I
Yeah.
ever told my wife. Because $2 million into it, the beer is very expensive now.
Yeah. It is much cheaper to go to the store and buy beer. I'm just telling you that right now. We get asked frequently, or I do, I'm sure you do too, what it's like to work with your spouse.
Ending the workday. It doesn't end.
No.
We're side by side, no matter what.
Like, I
talking
think-
about the business.
Yeah, when you're sitting on the couch at night at midnight and you were like, "Oh, I just forgot
You
to
need
tell you
to
that
do
one
this."
thing." Yeah, and then it escalates, and then now it's 2:00 in the morning and you're still talking about the business. That is one of the challenges. But I think the benefit is because we're always there, we have that ability, and we do work well together 90% of the time.
As long as you stay out of my stuff.
Yeah. So David has his own shop at the brewery, which he does a lot of the mechanical side of things. And usually on brew days, unless you ask me to now, I used to help when it was a smaller system.
Yeah.
But the bigger system is pretty self-sufficient. Can you
Yeah.
explain a bit about the bigger system? Because I know people are always asking when they come in.
It's a 4-vessel back-to-back brew style system. We used to have a 2-vessel system, so you did mash and lautering in one vessel and boil and whirlpooling in the other vessel. Now each one of those steps is broke down into its own tank. So 3.5, 4 hours into a brew day, your first 1,000 liters of beer comes off the system, and then every hour and a half after that, we can make 1,000 liters of beer.
And before, the old system was
The old system, in a 120-hour work week, we could do 1,600 liters. Now we can do 7,000 liters in 12 hours.
yeah. It does. It has made a huge,
It's a little different. Yeah.
huge difference. So David also designed our canning line, which is really cool, and it kind of started.
From necessity.
Yeah, but what were we? A Glickman?
Blickman beer guns.
Yeah, and basically what that is a wand that you shoot the beer into the can or the bottle or whatever it was that we were using at the time. Some of the trials and tribulations we've experienced, I guess, is when there was a can shortage, so we had to switch to bottles. And that basically means you have to get a new capper. You have to figure out different ways of filling the bottle from the can. So we were filling about those with the gun at the time.
2 beer guns. And
a lot of help.
A lot of help.
And a lot of drunken nights.
Many drunk friends putting labels on bottles and filling bottles. And
we would start in the morning.
Yeah. And can for 16 hours to be open for 9 hours and be out of beer.
Yeah, it was exhausting. But we made it through.
Yeah.
We survived that summer, or I guess that was 2 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2 summers.
Yeah.
No, we had the canning line automated by the second summer.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So explain a little bit about that. Oh, this is a really cool thing. You have developed a new company. This is basically
co-developed.
Co-developed a new company. I had nothing to do with this, but it's kind of stems from what we started.
From exactly that.
Yeah.
Canadian Craft Solutions, building budget-minded keg washers and canning lines, and the things we couldn't afford when we entered into the business. So
it was really important for us to for you guys to develop systems that were affordable because that was one of the biggest challenges we found, was that finding equipment that was affordable for somebody on a budget, because we didn't have backers. We were doing things on our own that didn't put us so far into debt that we were not able to afford what we were doing. So David's been building stuff to get us through, which if you watch our YouTube channel, our Brewery Farm Life, you see bits and pieces of what you've done in the past. Yeah. So it started with the keg washer, and now you're developing a canning line, which is huge.
Yeah.
These are things you should be proud of, darling.
I am.
Yes.
It's not finished yet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So, and everyone that I know loves to hear stories about the animals. And I don't know if you can see in the background here.
My girls.
David's girls. And I think that David loves them more than he loves me.
Not all the time.
Not all the time. So they're Highland cows.
Yeah, purebred registered Scottish Highland cows.
And what kind of was the drive to buy those guys? Your girls.
Friends and family in Scotland, and our trip to Scotland, stopping on the side of the road to jump fences and go see them.
In Scotland.
In Scotland.
Sorry, farmer in Scotland, that we went and saw your Highland cows, because now I know how dangerous that actually was. So from there, we also got sheep.
Yep.
And goats. And now there's a couple horses at the farm. David, tell us how
that
much you love horses.
That has nothing to do with me.
You love the horse.
That's your deal.
Yeah. He hates horses. And dogs. You love dogs.
I love dogs.
It's the cats you don't like.
That's right.
Yeah. We're learning.
Except for the working cats.
Yeah.
The ones that keep the mice off my grain.
That's important.
That's good.
For sure. What do you think's coming up in the future for us? Not for us, for the brewery. I'll talk to you about us afterwards.
More growth that we had planned before COVID and during this last year, and things are coming together. So yeah, keep pushing it and
And you are, you enjoy being a brewer.
I do.
It's a big career change from being a mechanic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everybody's happy to see me now.
Yeah. Somewhat.
Somewhat.
Maybe not your children at 71,
Right.
but what is like you don't find as many challenges there, or are you finding that there's different challenges, or what's the
Probably same. Different challenges, but lots of challenges.
awesome? You're so talkative.
I know. You knew this.
Yeah.
You invited me here.
So basically, David and I working together has been a challenge. You've got that from the conversation a little bit here and there, but we both do our own separate things. He works on the mechanical side of things. I work on the business running of things, the kind of the background of the business as far as like the finances and the paperwork and all the boring stuff that he hates to do, that I also hate to do, but it has to get done, so I do it. What do you, I know, and we get asked all the time about expansion, about what's happening in the future as far as the farm is concerned, and whether or not our kids are going to take it over. Thoughts?
Expansion on the farm and our tap room and stuff. Kids taking over. One says she is.
Yeah. So,
Although you just told me she was maybe going to tear the brewery down and put a vet clinic
Yeah.
in now. Something.
she's 12, and she's always said to us that she's going to take over the brewery when she's older because she doesn't like the way that we run it.
Because I won't put whole vanilla beans
in our
in
beer.
copious amounts in my beer.
Yeah.
Because they're too much money right now in the world. So she's going to fire me and
She's going to
put
fire
vanilla
you.
beans in the beer.
I mean, she's got a plan.
Yep.
But now she's decided that she's going to take over the farm and the brewery's going to be gone, and she's going to have a vet clinic.
Apparently.
Yeah. But the boys have never really had any interest in.
No. Mac wants to wrench on airplanes.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. As long as I get an airplane.
Well, there you have it, folks. better be doing good financially. So yeah, I think that's about it. That covers most of what we do together. We do miss traveling. We haven't done that in a long time. David and I used to travel to the U.S. quite frequently.
Touring craft
Touring
breweries.
craft breweries, right? And we call that research and development.
Yep.
But of course, we haven't been able to do that for quite some time. So hopefully in the near future, we can get back to doing that, and we can talk a little bit more about the different craft breweries in the area. Future podcasts, I think it'll be fun. We're going to have a few brewers on here
Cool.
that you have some.
We'll teach them to make
We'll
good
teach
beer.
them to
too.
make good beer. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. No, we have some very good friends that are brewers in the area that have volunteered to come on our podcast for a little conversation with David and them, which
Should
could
be
get
fun.
quite heated and fun.
Heckling.
Thank you very much for watching, guys. I appreciate all your support and watching and listening, I guess. And thanks for
sure.
joining, David.
No problem.
I really appreciate it.
Time.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Nikki.
Cheers.
Cheers.